again, middle schoolers, if you made a basket on the first try. First try. Good job, Lil Miller. Who else? First try. Uno, Emma. There it is, good girl. Anyone else? First try? Okay, how about if you were on the, stand up if you were on the winning team for the middle schoolers. Is that poor sportsmanship I'm hearing? That's what I'm thinking. Okay, so let's see how many. 2, 4, 6, 7. Okay. Okay. Camden. Jackson's all over the place. Okay. Okay, now I'm going to ask, who are we missing? Do I have to go out there? Good night. Okay. We're going to have snack, and then we're going to watch our video sermon. And who would like to pray over our food tonight? Come on up, Josh. Come on up, big guy. The man, the myth, the legend. And we want to thank the Danglases for providing this food. So thank you, Emma and her family. Nick.
Oh, I got to start praying now? Well, I got to wait for Matt and Hannah to sit down. Come on, guys.
We'll go ahead and pray.
All right. God, thank you for this food. Thank you for this night. I hope that this food nourishes our body and to help serve you in your ways. In Jesus' name we say amen.
Amen. Good job, Josh. Okay, since Josh offered to pray, he gets to go first. So we've got waters over there by the sound booth, nachos over here. So Josh, help yourself. Emma, since you and your family brought it, you and 5 of your closest friends get to go next. It's like you didn't even exist, Kaylee. Okay, middle school. Do we have any other middle school girls? Okay, middle school girls, if you don't have water, you can get water and then go get your nachos. There's cookies over there. You guys are set up legit tonight. Legit. Nick, did you help make this? Did you cook the meat? Your sister's narking you out, Nick. What's that? Yes, they're for emotional support. Josh, you're causing a bottleneck there, buddy. Okay, middle school boys, go get your water first. Come put your water down, and then you can go get in line for snacks. Put your waters down and then go get your food. Okay, all our middle school boys. High school girls, go get your water, come put it back down, then go get nachos. Gary, can you put a little music on for while they're getting their food? guys, how many cookies are you allowed for the first time through? 1 cookie. And then once everyone has first, then we go back for seconds, right? Because if we take more than 1, we're not sure everyone has enough, right? Okay, high school boys, get your waters. There's water bottles over there. You can get some, put it at your seat, and then go get your nachos. You getting nachos, DT? Meat, cheese. What's that? Okay, everyone got their food? Up? There you go, Lauren. Good girl. That is a work of art. How many of you guys put jalapenos on your nachos? Raise your hand. Good. How many of you guys put sour cream on your nachos? How many of you put meat on your nachos? What else is over there? Oh, olives. How many of you put olives? I love olives. Yummy. Everything but guac. I love guac. Anna, you're hogging up the line there, girl. Yeah, you can go get more water. And then during the movie, if you guys need more water or more nachos, you can go back for seconds. It's our second part of our series, Control. And there's another funny skit in it tonight, too. So there was, what was the funny skit from the 2 weeks ago? You guys remember? Super Rebel. Super Rebel. You guys. Okay. Get some, Kennedy. Don't like nachos. Olay, home slices. Get a move on. Okay, hurry up, guys. About ready to get started. Any adults who want nachos, hop on up there. They're good. Go get nachos. Go get nachos, kiddos. We don't want you guys wasting away. Okay, boys, have a seat. I'm going to turn the lights off. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. I'd love to see your socks. Oh, that's nasty. Because you're a beast. Okay, here we go, guys.
Would you put your tablet away and join the family, please?
This is so someone actually has fun at dinner.
It's bad for your brain.
You know, it's like we're the first parents ever who care about their child.
Hey, darling, it'd be real swell if you leave the door open.
My own parents spying on me, that's just swell.
Come on, honey. Watch the chin music.
Golly gee willikers.
Did you kiss your mother with that mouth?
Hey, Paul, can I take out the family wagon?
Your mom and me ain't too comfortable with you gallivanting all over creation in the family wagon. It's got a full 4 horsepower. That's a lot more power than a little spud like you needs.
That just plumb ain't fair. Can I at least take it down to the creek? I promise I'll have it back in 2 flaps of barn swallower's wings.
I already made up my mind. Now get out there and milk old Bessie, plow the north. And clean up the pig pen. Oh. Beatrice, darling, we hath decided thou shalt not see Sir William any longer.
Nay, if thou restricteth our visitations, I shall flee to the woods and waste away.
Beatrice, thou art still young.
16 birthdays hath I celebrated. I am a woman fully grown.
It's bad for your brain.
You know, it's like we're the first parents ever who care about their child.
Hey, darling, it'd be real swell if you leave the door open.
My own parents spying on me, that's just swell.
Come on, honey. Watch the chin music.
Golly gee willikers.
Did you kiss your mother with that mouth?
Hey, Paul, can I take out the family wagon?
Your mom and me ain't too comfortable with you gallivanting all over creation in the family wagon. It's got a full 4 horsepower. That's a lot more power than a little spud like you needs.
That just plumb ain't fair. Can I at least take it down to the creek? I promise I'll have it back in 2 flaps of barn swallower's wings.
I already made up my mind. Now get out there and milk old Bessie, plow the North 40, and clean up the pig pen. Oh. Beatrice, darling, we hath decided thou shalt not see Sir William any longer.
Nay, if thou restricteth our visitations, I shall flee to the woods and waste away.
Beatrice, thou art still young.
16 birthdays hath I celebrated. I am a woman fully grown. Bartholomew, do you know the hour?
Oh, must have lost track of the moon.
What am I supposed to do when you keep breaking curfew?
Everyone gets to stay out late in Nazareth.
Not true. Mary's kid from down the street never breaks curfew.
Oh, here we go again with Jesus, the perfect son. There's nothing wrong with Jesus.
Excuse me? What are you wearing? I will not let you leave the pyramid looking like that. I look fine. Denial's not just a river in Egypt. Oh, my raw. I wish I was mummified right now.
Ruga naga ruga. Aga ruga naga ruga 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 naga ruga.
Ooga maga, ooga waga, ooga wa.
What's up, y'all? This is D.A. Horton, and this is Control. In the last session, we unpacked God's authority in our lives and how his control changes the way we live. Giving God everything is the best thing for us to do. But you and I both know that God is not the only one who has a say-so in our lives. Adults still tell us what to do, and the most obvious people with control is our parents. And now let's get real, y'all. Parents have rules and expectations, and sometimes it's just too much to handle. I mean, for real, what's up with our parents anyway? I'm a parent, and I even asked that about myself. And why did God give them to us, and how should we treat them? These are a few questions that I know y'all thinking about. So we're gonna have a little bit more real talk after this story. So I want you to tune in to what my homie Q has to say.
I grew up in a very Christian home. My family, they were very firm believers, but growing up, my faith was very weak. I battled with a bunch of temptation, and I was very disobedient at the time. My parents had a lot of rules to follow in the household. I didn't really agree with a lot of them. I just wanted to do things on my own instead of just doing what they're telling me to do, which caused me to start going downhill. I started getting into a lot of school trouble, disobeying my teachers, in and out of detention. All the stuff that my teachers, my parents, or counselors, anything would try to say to me, I didn't listen, because if it's not a benefit for me, I felt like, then I'm not gonna listen. What's the point of listening? It's not making me better. I don't care. My parents used to tell me, Q, you need to focus in life, and you need to see the person who you're becoming, because it's not right. They tried to take me to church, but when I go to church, I'll listen to the word, but the next day, I'll just go and do what I wanted to do, really. That caused me to fall deep into temptation. And that's when I started to fall into my lust. And I started really disobeying my parents, sneaking out of the house when my parents go to sleep, watching pornography, and it really pushed me away from God and away from my family, and I was basically living through myself. And now you know you have that conscience telling you this is wrong, you're not supposed to be doing this, which was God trying to really have that encounter with me, but I didn't want to listen. And I felt like I couldn't get out of it. One day, my brother, he came into the room and he sat down with me and he told me that he's been having an encounter with God. And he's told me he's really starting to change, and I've been seeing his actions and his change. He sat down with me and he said, hold my hand. I held his hand and he started praying for me. My brother told me that God loves you and he doesn't want you to live within yourself. He wants you to live within him. Stop making God your own image. And that really hit me. Stop making God your own image, because I was truthfully just making God in the image that I wanted God to be in. And it just really made me reflect on the things that I was doing and all of the temptations and the lust and the disobedience that I was going through at that time with my parents. I just prayed, and I prayed really hard. I started crying, and God really spoke to me, and from there I felt like he saved my life. After that, the next service I went to, I got saved. I did really start to make a change. So I've started to treat my parents the way that they need to be treated, and started not living of myself, but respecting my parents and not being so disobedient. When they tell me to do something, I started to take action into it instead of saying, oh, I'll just do it later, I'll just get to it later, but starting to get to it now. And that really helped me mold into the person that I was becoming.
All right, look, I'm just gonna get real. Dealing with your parents is one of the hardest things that you have to do as a teenager. I know, because I'm an ex-teenager and I have a teenager. Now, maybe you feel like Q. Your parents have way too many rules that just don't make any sense to you. You have to choose to either obey or rebel. Now, let's see what God has to say about our parents. In Ephesians chapter 5, verses 1 and 2, Paul says, therefore, be imitators of God as beloved children, and walk in love as Christ loved us and gave himself up for us as a fragrant offering and a sacrifice to God. You see, in the last session, we established that God has authority over our lives. Ephesians 5, verses 1 and 2 gives us a good summary of how that truth should play out in our lives on a consistent basis. Now, we are to imitate God, which means walk in love just as Jesus loved us. So the question is, how does God's authority in our lives affect how we handle other authorities? Well, the rest of Ephesians chapter 5 and chapter 6 explain practical ways that we can imitate Jesus' love in our lives. Ephesians 5:21 tells us that we need to submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. The passages following this statement give examples of how each of us can submit to each other in different relationships. And one of the authorities God establishes in our lives is our parents. Ephesians chapter 6, verses 1, 2, and 3, children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother. This is the first commandment with the promise that it may go well with you and that you may live long in the land. Now, Paul, who is the author of this letter, continues his conversation on imitating God and talks about parents and their kids. It teaches us that submitting to human authorities, in this case, it's our parents, is part of submitting to God's authority. Children should obey their parents, and they should honor them as well. Now, obedience is more action-driven. It means that you obey your curfew, finish the chores when you're asked, or you maybe help with your siblings when your parents need help. To honor actually takes obedience a step further. To honor your parents means to respect them, to speak well of them to others, and to listen when they give you advice. And I know for some of y'all, that's tough because it was tough for me as well. But you know what? Deuteronomy 6, verses 5 through 9, listen to this. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. And these words that I command you today shall be on your heart. You shall teach them diligently to your children, and shall talk of them when you sit in the house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise. You shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be on your frontlets between your eyes, and you shall write them on the doorpost of your house and on your gates. Listen to me, y'all. God has given parents authority. In these verses, God lays out instructions for parents. They're to love God, and they're to teach us to do the same. They watch over us, protect us, and they teach us how to live. They're looking out for our good. This means that we obey and honor our parents, even if we don't agree. Even if we think curfew should be an hour later, or that we should be able to take the car out on Saturday afternoons, or if we want to put that homework off until tomorrow. We obey God by obeying our parents. Think of obeying them as training for when you're on your own. I mean, really, honoring your parents today prepares you to honor God as an adult. And the odds are you're going to get frustrated with them. But you know what? That's no excuse to ever walk in rebellion.
So I was raised in a family where I've tried to be good my whole life, just trying to be the perfect daughter to kind of make up for my two older sisters. They had just kind of been really rebellious their whole life. They both had started having sex at a really young age and gotten involved in drugs and drinking. And so I wanted to be perfect to kind of make it up to my parents and to just kind of be the kind of daughter I thought they deserved. When I was 17 in high school, I got involved in this youth group. And all my friends were in it. I just kind of wanted to join it. So I started going, and it completely changed my life. I was just absolutely in love with God. I talked about him all the time because he was just my life, and I was so excited. I was talking to my parents, and I was just talking to them about what it meant that Christ, the Son of God, came and he died on the cross for my sins. But later that night, I realized that my mom didn't agree with me. I was up in my room, and I heard her and my sister talking downstairs, and she said, I never thought I would have this problem with a teenager. She told my sister about how I had joined a cult, and about how I was acting like a radical, and about how a youth group had brainwashed me. So they told me that I couldn't be in that organization anymore. I wasn't allowed to have contact with any of the leaders or any of the people that were in it. I knew that I had to respect my parents, and I had to follow their wishes. I felt really alone, and I actually started to believe that my life was better before all this happened. At least then, I had the support of my parents. So one night, just in complete frustration, I told God that I was fine before him, and I was gonna be fine after him. Now, a couple months later, I had a really freak nosebleed. I ran into the hospital, and I passed out as soon as I went inside. Yeah, the doctors were surprised I was alive because I had lost so much blood. I was to the point where I should be dead. That was completely something that God used to cause me to reach back out towards him. Just to show me that I need God. I can't handle this life on my own. I need God in my life. I asked my mom for permission to go to this church because I really felt like I needed her permission in order to go. And by the grace of God, he must have done something in her heart, and she allowed me to go. After that time, I just became really on fire for God, and I really am just really passionate about making his name known and telling everyone about his amazing love.
All right, y'all, let's get real. because I got a real question to ask. What if your parents don't follow God? I know some of y'all may have already been thinking that, and guess what? It's a legit question, and it's something Carly had to wrestle with. We all know that parents aren't perfect. I mean, I'm not. I'm a dad, and my kids will tell you I ain't perfect. But it can be exceptionally difficult to obey them if they're not following God. If they don't know Jesus, it can be very challenging to submit to their authority. But listen, God teaches us how to honor our parents even when they don't honor Him and even if they don't know Jesus. So that leads me to another question that you may be asking. What if my parents are not obeying God? Well, guess what? God did set them up as authorities in your life, so that doesn't change. So before we dive into how to handle that question, let's establish a couple of ground rules. First, having parents who are not Christians is not a license to find reasons for you to rebel against them. Here's an example. If your parents don't want you to go to a youth group event because it's a school night, you do not have the biblical grounds to disobey them. The same principles we discussed earlier, they still apply. You should honor your parents, and you should honor their wishes. If they openly oppose your faith and they attack you for your faith, they may expect some pushback, and if you continue to obey them, it might surprise them, and God may use it for them to actually embrace Christ because of your witness. And secondly, you should never submit to abuse, illegal activities, or anything that puts you or anyone else in danger. If anything like that ever happens in your home, you need to tell a trusted adult or you should call the police. So that leads us to a couple of realities. One, how do you submit to a God-given authority that disobeys God? Well, I think we should look at the story of Daniel. But Daniel resolved that he would not defile himself with the king's food or with the wine that he drank. Therefore, he asked the chief eunuch to allow him not to defile himself. And God gave Daniel favor and compassion in the sight of the chief eunuchs. So listen, Daniel and his friends were teens taken from his home in Israel to a foreign land called Babylon to work in the court of the king. And Babylon, as we know, in the scripture is notorious for being a very wicked nation. Now, part of Daniel and his friends' training required a new diet. But the food that was given to Daniel and his friends violated God's laws. So instead of eating the food and violating God's laws, Daniel respectfully refused and asked for an alternative diet in verse 8. In the end, Daniel and his friends were allowed to keep God's dietary laws, man. Just like that. That's just like God, to put Babylon in authority. God has given your parents authority in your life, whether they're a Christian or not. He isn't a stranger to your situation or to their hearts. You might not ever know why God chose to give you your parents, but you can trust that He is with you and He sees the situation that you're in. And as we already established earlier in the session, no matter what, we should obey, respect, and honor and submit to our parents. Maybe God has you where you're to show His love to your family. You never know how God will use you to spread the good news of Jesus. So regardless of whether your parents follow Jesus or not, you will have to forgive your parents. All of us are sinners. I mean, Colossians 3:13 tells us to forgive as we have been forgiven. And if you're angry with your parents, ask God to give you a heart of forgiveness. Choose to forgive them even if they wrong you, and especially if they wrong you. Now, there are times to stand firm like Daniel. And if your parents clearly tell you to break God's laws, man, y'all gotta be bold and respectfully decline. Sometimes they may ask you to lie to a teacher so you can get a better grade. Or they may encourage you to have provocative behavior with your boyfriend and girlfriend sexually. Or they may put you and your brothers and sisters against each other. Above all, you gotta honor and respect your parents out of a love for them and out of a love for God. And dealing with parents can be rough. And odds are you feel misunderstood at least once in your teenage years. I know I did, and that's what we saw in Q and Carly's stories. God put your parents in your life for a reason. And even if they ain't Christians, they still serve a purpose in your life. They keep you safe. They provide a roof over your head. They feed you. They drive you to practice, and the list goes on. But no matter what, we should give our parents respect, honor, and obedience. So as you start your group discussion, let me challenge you not to turn it into a time where you throw shade on your parents. Listen, they're not always gonna make the right decision, and neither are you. So season your speech with grace and love, but real talk, be honest. You're not the only one who has a tough time with your parents. Read God's word, pray for each other, and I'm gonna see you next time.
Okay, well, I really enjoyed that video. I really liked how he talked about how to obey your parents even if they don't obey God. And so when we break up into small groups, we're going to talk about how to respect and honor our parents, and even if they don't have the same beliefs as us. So I'm going to pray really quick, and then we'll go into small groups. Jesus, I pray that you bless these small groups and that you let the message sink deep into our hearts and help us learn to respect and honor our parents because you have put them into our lives to respect them and to obey you. And in Jesus' name, amen.
Okay, so middle school girls, you guys go in the preschool room, don't you? There's too many of you guys. So you guys are going to be here, and high schoolers are in the baby room, where you guys always are. And then middle school leaders, the M&Ms are on the back row there somewhere.